Hi, I'm Dr. Tracy Mancini, president of Carteret Community College, and this is our next episode of Bytes, the official podcast for Carteret Community College. January at the college is Service Month. We celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday with a day of service, and we also at our employee meeting celebrate our employees' service anniversaries, quinquennials, every 5 years of service that they add on. We are so excited this January to add public service to our celebration by having Senator Norm Sanderson here with us and Representative Celeste Cairns with us. Senator Sanderson is the senator for District 1 in North Carolina, which covers 8 counties, and Representative Cairns is newly elected to District 13 in North Carolina, and we are so thrilled to have you both here. And thank you for your service to our county and to the state of North Carolina.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mancini, for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for your service to Eastern North Carolina.
Well, we are interested in what led you to this pathway in your life and career. Can you talk a little bit about your road to public service?
I would be glad to. This all came about for me one day. My wife and I owned a child care center in Havelock. It's what we did for about 13 years. And I drove the bus, cooked the food, and did the vacuuming. And so I was working in the center one afternoon or one morning by myself, running the vacuum cleaner, and was thinking and going over in my mind about a situation, political situation that was getting ready to happen in Eastern North Carolina in our own district. And I was not very pleased with what I saw because I knew the gentleman who was getting ready to be put in position of our North Carolina senator. And so I was just talking out loud over the vacuum cleaner, and I said, God, you need to do something about this. And over the top of that vacuum cleaner, as clearly as I've ever heard anything in my life, I heard him say, no, you do something about it. Wow. So for 6 weeks, 2 months, I kind of ran from that challenge, because I found out you don't challenge the Lord because he'll challenge you right back. But I ran from it, and eventually I couldn't. I said, well, I've got to do something. So sometime during that, I told Linda. Linda was very wise. She didn't say yes, no. She just remained quiet and let me work to or come to that. So I decided that I would run for public office if that's what the Lord wanted me to do. So I had to find out where I had to go to sign up. Didn't even know. And I went down to the Board of Elections, signed up. And it's been a journey ever since. And that was in 2006. I ran in a primary against Carteret County's most special senator, Jean Preston. She and I ran in a primary against each other. She beat me 80% to 20%. I don't even know how I got 20%. But that really started something in me because I began to look for ways to help the party. And got involved, had fundraisers for her, went around with her, helped her get elected, and ended up serving my first term in the House with her as the senator. And so we used to have long conversations between the two of us. And but it's worked. So I've done this since 2006. I didn't win until 2011, and so three different elections I ran and lost, and kept saying, Lord, I know I heard your voice. Can you tell me what's going on here? And so, but I did win in 2011, spent my first 2 years in the House, and then she retired, and I moved over and ran for her Senate seat. And so that's how I got here, and I have so enjoyed doing what I do. And it's just an awesome thing.
Clearly, you have such a large district now, 8 counties, and you seem to be able to come to a lot of our events in all the different counties, so we're grateful for that.
Well, I think it's necessary. I think it's very, very necessary to be with your people, with your constituents as much as you can. Mm-hmm. And they kind of sometimes look at me and say, well, you don't have to be here for this. But yeah, I do. If I can come, I'm going to be there. So I enjoy serving.
He's amazing. He seems to be everywhere. I don't know how he manages it.
How about your path?
Well, interesting. I never saw myself as a candidate or someone who would do this myself, but I had been, I would say, politically motivated and interested in politics since I was a young woman for 2 reasons. One, my background professionally in accounting, looking at how my clients were impacted by the various laws, taxes, regulations, and such. And then also from a faith perspective, like Senator Sanderson, I'm a Christian, and so that's been a big part of my life. And I would see various I don't want to call them battles, but issues in the culture and stuff, and understanding that our government needs to be sometimes have godly people there, people who are interested in hopefully edging the culture in a positive way. So I would work for other candidates and was involved a little bit locally with the party when I was younger. But then, Whaley's on the way, marriage, kids, travel. We were overseas for 11 years, and I really, while I was still interested in reading and listening, I wasn't actively involved. But shortly after coming back from overseas, I had a cousin who was elected to Congress, the U.S. Congress from Texas. And I love him. We're very close, and I had worked for him on some of his state campaigns. So I was there for his swearing in D.C. This is January of 2019. And unfortunately, Walter Jones was representing us at that time. He was very ill, and he swore in from a distance because he was too ill to be in D.C. So my cousin approached me and said, you may lose your congressman soon, and if you do, I'd like you to run. I think you should run. It was an absurd statement from him, and we were both desperately naive. I had not gotten involved at all with the party here. So when I entered that race, local folks really let me know they had no idea who I was, and rightly so. I had not, worked here, and they did not know me. So after that election, I stayed around and got involved and pursued, working with the party. And so fast forward, 3 years, and I'm in a different position. And while I did not enjoy the campaign process, and I'll say some of it is still quite difficult for me, I was in a very different position at that point, so that our own representative, announced she was retiring, and she spoke to me about running. And some of the leadership in the party spoke to me about running. And so I thought, well, I don't have an excuse not to do it. I am passionate about it. So my husband and I, we talked about it, prayed about it, and here I am.
Well, it's a real calling, isn't it? And Representative McElraft was a wonderful representative for us as well. We've had her on the podcast before, and we're grateful for the service she provided.
She's wonderful. In fact, I'm told daily that I have very big shoes to fill, and I know that that's true.
Well, we welcome you, and we look forward to working with you. So we were very fortunate to get both of you this week before the long session really begins. Could you tell us a little bit about what your weeks will look like starting next week, and what a day looks like at the General Assembly?
Well, let me joke about that first, and then I'll let him answer it properly, because so much of it's new for me. We are yet to figure it out. My LA and I, we feel like we are drinking from a fire hose, and we don't have a full grasp yet exactly how our schedule's going to run. So it's all very challenging, but we're still working on that.
It's a pretty intense week for us. We try to put 3 days into for a full week. We go into session Monday evenings, usually 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and have a couple-hour session. And then on Tuesdays and Wednesdays is when we do most of what I call the important work in the General Assembly. That's committees and things. Because it's in your committees is where all of the work takes place. By the time a piece of legislation gets to the floor, whether in the Senate or House, most of the work has been done, and very, very few bills get changed after they come to the floor. And so, I chair this year for the last 4 years, and this next 2 years, I chair Agriculture Committee in the Senate. And it's very important. I've tried to choose committees where will help me be the most help for my constituents. Mm-hmm. And of course, agriculture is big in eastern North Carolina, but agriculture also does energy. And we also oversee all of the public resources, all the parks, all of the museums, all of that. Tourism is under us. And so it really helps to be able to know what this part of North Carolina really needs and to be able to work for it. So we have committee meetings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays with session on both days. We usually try to end up Thursday around lunchtime so that we can come back home and be with our constituents. But it's full of visits. You'll be amazed at how many people want to see you, especially the first few weeks of session while we're doing our budget, and everybody's coming looking for money, or they send a list. I've gotten half a dozen Christmas lists already. So I don't think there's enough money in the budget yet to fulfill just what's coming out of my district. I don't know what the other 49 districts are going to do. But anyway, so there's not many dull moments, really, with lobbyists and visitors and the committees and caucuses, and it's a pretty full week in 3 days.
But you're always so gracious and have welcomed us when we have brought a delegation of students and partners, business partners, to visit you, and we look forward to coming again this year.
I look forward to you.
Community College Day.
It's your office. It's I told the group last night that we were speaking to that if I could make 150 keys, I'd give them all a key to the office because it belongs to them. And Linda and I are privileged to sit in that office and do the best that we can to serve the folks. But, overall, Eastern North Carolina is not like a lot of your bigger metropolitan urban areas. Most of the people who come to see me or get to my office usually have a solution for their problems. They just need some help getting it started and getting it moving, and that's huge. It really is.
Well, you have been very supportive of education and community colleges. We are so thankful that you come and visit our campus so that you can see firsthand what we're doing. And a lot of what we're doing is related to tourism and agriculture, aquaculture, maritime and marine sciences. We are interested in hearing about what you think are some of the priorities coming up for education this year and your thoughts on community colleges and the value of them in our state.
Community colleges in North Carolina are the hidden gem. They are a treasure. They are the envy of many, many states around this nation, trying to set up a system like we already have in place. The community college system is the most responsive to everyday citizens of any education group that I know of. Within a few weeks, you can see a need, you can move to hire your staff, you can find a place, find a curriculum, and have it operating in just a few weeks. Whereas the UNC system, it takes years to get something put in place. And so that's awesome in itself. One of the biggest things that I see coming, and Linda and I were in education. I was a principal of a private school for 5 years and even taught some of that time when we were short on teachers. But, I think that what we have to face, and we've got to get serious about it, is that a lot of our children over the last 2 years lost a lot of educational opportunities. And if we think that we can just ignore it and it's going away, it's not going to happen. I don't want to put the community colleges in a situation like they were several years ago or a few years ago, that they spent a lot of their resources and a lot of their time in remediation just to get students coming out of high school that were ready for community college work. That's not what we need in our system. So we've got to find a way to go back and pick these children up, and I think it's really going to start showing when our middle schoolers now get into high school. They're not going to be ready to do the high school work. So we've got to help them catch up, or we're going to just, lower our standards, push them on through, and get them through the system. And that's a catastrophe waiting to happen.
It is. We don't need these standards lowered. We need the kids to be well-educated, just a well-rounded, basic, good education. And we shouldn't have children, I guess they're teenagers, going to college and having to do remedial work, on the simple things, the grammar, the math. But I am grateful, too, to the community colleges. And you gave me a tour, I guess, a month or so ago, maybe a little more. And I was so impressed with all you have going on. And clearly you are trying to address what this area needs, and that's wonderful. And I think it's so important for kids, and high school kids especially, to see a career path, to see various things that they were able to do and have wonderful, successful careers. And that's something that I think our community colleges are doing very well.
Thank you. Yes, we have a great partnership with Carteret County Public Schools, and we actually bring every 8th grader through our college every year so that they can start to imagine possibilities and see some of the labs and programs that might be good options for them. And then we bring a lot of high school students in every year, and with dual enrollment with students who are in high school able to take some
That's
college
awesome.
classes.
I've got a one of my grandsons is at East Carolina University, and I think he went in either his second term sophomore or maybe even first term junior, just by the courses he was able to take through the community college system in high school, and that is such extraordinary. Being able to do that is so wonderful.
And it's one of the reasons we work really hard to keep all of our equipment and faculty current. We have the reason why we're doing so well in this state is because we have amazing faculty and staff, and we're really proud of ours at Carteret Community College and value all that they do. They are called also to serve this community and this public and do a great job.
Yes, they really are.
So how do you take care of yourselves during all of this? I know you're reading briefings and trying to learn about your district and visit people and get to know them. What are some of the things you do to take care of yourselves and your families?
I just try to listen to my wife.
She's here.
She's here.
Yes.
And so, but I know that it seems really complicated, especially when you first are introduced to the system. But the system is extraordinary in the fact that it really does a lot to help us. We have dedicated full-time staff, which a lot of states don't have. Our staff is 12-month out of the year staff. They are specialized into different sections, groups, depending on what they're dealing with, whether it's education or transportation or aviation or whatever. There are specialists in each of those areas that help us. So they can take a 20-page piece of legislation, and they can reduce it down into a 2-page white paper. And so what we have to do is not read the whole 20 pages. You can, and a lot of people do, but a lot of the 20 pages are just for implementation. How do you get it started? What do we have to do to make it work? The real heart of it can be reduced into a dozen talking points, and that's what you have to know. Why are we doing this? What is it going to help? And how's it going to benefit our citizens? And so that's amazing for us to be able to have that.
And it takes a team, I'm sure it does.
When you have a 800-page budget, and you've got a week maybe when you see the finalized budget before you have to vote on it, there's no way that you can go through 800 pages and understand everything that's in it. But they break it down in such a way that it makes it very, very easy for us, like doing your own budget sitting around the kitchen table. And so it's really runs, really the state of North Carolina has something to be very proud of with the way that our staff helps us.
That's wonderful. Well, it's reassuring to all of us, too.
It is. Yeah. I was always told, if you haven't read it, you don't know what's in it, you vote no. And that's not a bad idea.
Do you have any insights or forecasts about what you think will be hot topics this long session?
Go ahead.
Oh, there'll be a lot of hot topics. The things that you all probably heard about before, we'll have to look at again, whether it's Medicaid expansion or medical marijuana, sports gambling, abortion, and of course there's the budget. That's the big deal with the long session now that we've got to hammer out the really big budget. And so our hands are full, but we're eager to get started, really.
We are. I think that looking at what I think is getting ready to come to the General Assembly, this is probably, no, I won't say probably, it's the most important session that I've ever served in, with long-term consequences to what it can and cannot do for the state of North Carolina. And we have to be very, very careful that we make the right decisions. And that's where it's so important. Sometimes it's like constituents don't want to bother you. I love for constituents to bother me. I love for them to call. I love for them to text or email. I love for them to come to Raleigh and talk to not only me but other legislators. That's how the system is supposed to work. And that's the safeguards that we have in it. It's not Celeste and I talking to each other figuring out a problem. It's all those people that have to live it every single day that are going to be affected by it. Say, you know what? It would be a little easy if you do this or do that. And so that's so complicated. I tell folks, I said, don't you elect us or elect me and send me to Raleigh and leave me by myself, because I need to hear from y'all.
That's wonderful. great to hear, Senator, that how welcoming you are of constituents' voices and just learning and continuing to grow.
The greatest thing I do is when children come to visit, school-age groups come to visit, I give everyone that wants the opportunity a chance to sit in my chair behind my desk and we take a picture of them.
Oh, that's fantastic. We'll talk about helping people figure out a career path. That's one that they probably don't know much about.
They don't know much about it. And yet it's one of the most consequential things that any of us can ever do, at least to have a working knowledge of how government works.
Absolutely.
And we're not doing a great job right now teaching that in a lot of our schools. You know, that's other things have taken its place, and yet primarily that is one of the most important things that a young person can know is how government is supposed to operate so that when they see it going astray, they can try to do something to bring it back.
That's great. Well, so does the General Assembly have some sort of mentorship program for newer representatives or senators? And how does that work? Because clearly you have so much to share about the work to be done.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that he is wonderful, and I have reached out to him on several occasions and will continue to do that. And I will say the other legislators that we have met are all offering assistance. Absolutely. There are people, and also the staff that he mentions, and people who have been legislative assistants for years, and everybody seems to be desirous of helping us to learn and get settled. And then as a freshman group, you know, we meet together as well and talk about our priorities and things and what we all would like to do so that we're not, hate to say it, we're not just taking orders from any leadership, but we're there representing our districts and pushing forward what we're interested in doing. You know, when you look at, my district is Carteret County and just a small portion of Craven. Senator Sanderson has 8 counties now. But, you know, we have how many countless reps from Raleigh. So, you know, you look at the city of Raleigh and they have got multiple voices.
Yeah.
But we have these districts that are very, very large and are really dependent on us to be their voices. So I know I'm spending a lot of time now talking to people here in the district to try to figure out what are the needs. And
we have, and it's just to encourage or enforce what she said, there are 5 North Carolina senators that represent eastern North Carolina, coastal North Carolina, from the South Carolina line to the Virginia line. There are 5 senators just in Wake County. And so they are just as, they just want as much for their citizens as they can, just like we do. And so it's a real challenge sometimes. One of the biggest things that we have to do is to educate people about eastern North Carolina, exactly what our needs are. And there's times been in the past when we've been neglected a little bit, but we're not. One of the greatest things that I do, I have a group of about a dozen senators that meet in my office one morning a week, and we pray and we discuss things from a biblical point of view. Sometimes that's not even welcome in your own caucus, but we do, and we pray for each other, and we pray for our families, and so it's amazing how that has grown. And people get up and leave home at 5:30 in the morning to be downtown Raleigh by 7:30 for that meeting. Yeah. So,
well, we're so fortunate to have both of you looking out for us. And I always like to end on a little light note, asking you what you're reading right now and if you have a book recommendation to share with our listenership.
Gosh, I would love to be reading for fun and just to learn. But right now I am doing a lot of reading on, issues and such. But I do read fiction at night before I go to sleep. I usually get through about 2 or 3 pages before I fall asleep. But then I did download just in the last couple of days a book by Douglas Murray called The War on the West that I've been wanting to read. And because my time is so short, I downloaded it as an Audible and plan to listen to it while I'm driving back and forth to Raleigh. So that'll, I always enjoy doing that. But I do think that it will be very interesting. I do feel that we are damaging ourselves here in the West by not celebrating all the things that we have done well. And, we're being attacked really from the inside. And I'm going to see what he has to say about that.
Well, other than the white papers that I was telling you about, you should be prepared, especially as a committee chair. You've got to be prepared when you go to know what's getting ready to take place in your committee because you're responsible for it. And then either I try to read the Bible every day, or Linda reads it to me when we're traveling or whatever. And so that's good. But I just got this book. I brought it with me. I wanted everybody to see it. It's called Sledgehammer. And it's a book about David Friedman, who was the former U.S. ambassador to Israel under the Trump administration. And it's an inside view of all of the things that came together to take such a volatile situation that the Middle East was in, and to take Israel on one hand and your Muslim nations on another hand, and bring them to the peace table and make such a great advancement in peace for that whole region of the world. And he's a really good author, and I'm looking forward to reading that.
These are great recommendations, and we thank you so much. And thank you for your service to our college, to our county, and to the state of North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you,
you very much.
Mancini.
We hope you'll join us for our next podcast, Sound Bites for Carteret Community College.